What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 podcast, where we talk about Tarrant County and the lovely city of Fort Worth, Texas. We get into politics, business, culture, news. If it impacts you as an 817er, we discuss it. We give you one big story, three short stories, wins, losses, and actions. I'm EJ Carrion.
And I'm Ann Zeta.
And this is our producer, Wesley Kirk. Today we have a Tarrant County Precinct 2 Commissioner preview with Jared Williams, Amanda Arizola, and Gabe Rivas. We're looking forward to see who is the most progressive. We ideally want to see who's bold, unapologetic. And what are you looking for in this upcoming discussions?
Well, first of all, I'm just really excited that we have three quality candidates running for office.
Absolutely.
So what I'm looking for is, like you said, who's the most progressive, who's going to be unapologetically progressive and carry forward policies for the people.
Now, Wesley, I know you have us for what the rules here and how this is going to work.
Yeah, so to make it as fair as possible, we have everyone's getting asked the exact same questions. It's going to be timed so that no one gets to just rant. And most importantly, for y'all to know, I am not editing this. This is uncut. You are seeing exactly what they're saying here in front of us. I'm not trying to make anyone look better or worse than anyone else. It's interesting because I've done a lot of debates and forums like this, but this is the first one where it's like, I can make the questions as... I can ask exactly what I want.
Yeah.
It was fun, like us figuring out what exactly we're going to ask everyone.
What about the air horn? Did you decide on that?
I really did want to do that, but I remembered it like 8 p.m. last night, so it was too late to get an air horn to like cut them off if they go over time. So I'll just yell at them.
So we're really excited to have these three candidates here today to help the people in Precinct 2 make a decision about who is going to be the best leader for them.
So first we have Jared Williams, and for these conversations, we're trying to figure out who's the most progressive candidate for this race. We're looking for unapologetically bold, progressive candidates. And so let's find out if that's you.
So the very first question is, often people are prompted to run for office because of something that's happened to them personally or an issue that they're focused on. So what made you decide to run for this office?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I'm the son of two working class parents who worked their way through life while raising me and my brother. And in this moment in time, and frankly, in this era in time, folks are working harder and harder for less and less, while politicians in power couldn't care less. And I believe that county government could be and should be, frankly, the catalyst for transformation that we need in our community. Government, in my view, should walk alongside its people, not sit on the sidelines and watch them suffer. And so that is something that is not new to me. Running for county commissioner's court is something that I've done my entire life as a community organizer, as a leader in a community, as a faith leader here in a community, really working towards justice and prosperity and opportunity where it didn't exist, especially for those most marginalized by failed policy and failed leadership over the past decades and in some cases longer.
Well, we've seen Tarrant County become the epicenter of extremism with the current judge, Judge Tim O'Hare, and the power that he has with the majority court. And so I know your faith is very important to you, but as a candidate for this office, being aware of this extremism that permeates and that impacts Tarrant County and Texas, how do you plan to stand up to extremism during this pivotal time?
Yeah, as a son of two parents who are not only public school teachers, but also community organizers, who fought for racial equality and justice in public schools. I come by, working for justice in my community naturally. I come by having courage and boldness to stand up for what's right and to use my voice to call out when things are wrong and when leaders particularly make failed decisions that create harm and human suffering in our community. And so as the next county commissioner, that won't change. I believe that this seat is not a seat for one particular person, and politicians in power have often wielded seats like it's their personal seat and like it's their lifelong job and career. And I have shown time and time again that that's not how I govern, that I'm willing to pass off the baton. But while I'm in the seat, I represent it as not Jared Williams' seat, but all of our seat. And I think that that is the essence of democracy. And so in this era of extremism and authoritarianism and the weaponization of religion and particularly Christian faith, it's incumbent on the people, on us, to call that out and pursue a future that could be possible that includes justice and opportunity for everyone here.
So, what experience and knowledge separates you from the other candidates that voters should know about?
That's always a tough question because it positions us over and against one another. But in reality, the primary is about seeking the nomination of the people to run in the general election. And so this is not whether or not we're running against each other. This is really about us having a conversation with people all across this county about what could be possible with the Tarrant County government that is functioning, that's effective, and that is centered on the voice, values, and issues of the people. That is something that I have had proven experience in, not only as a community organizer and a trusted leader in the nonprofit space, working on issues like food insecurity, on public education and the need for equity and equality across our public schools, the need for expanded funding in our schools, addressing homelessness, addressing healthcare issues like cancer, as well as being one of the youngest council members elected in Fort Worth. And in fact, flipping a seat for working class people, a seat that was never drawn for a kid from Southwest Fort Worth that looks like me. I was the underdog, outspent 10-1, and we won double turnout in the general and triple turnout in the election, runoff election. And that was because of so much work that went into it. Grassroots organizers, faith leaders, community leaders, neighbors all across the district that I represented, working hard to make that happen. And what did it yield? Some bold policies. Minimum wage was $10 an hour in 2021. I worked over 3 budgets to make sure it was 18. There was outsourcing, privatized of EMS that was exploiting people that had been in place for decades. $1,500 an ambulance ride. We ended the privatization and brought it back into Fort Worth under the Fort Worth Fire Department and delivered costs for ambulance rides such that no one has to decide between life and their budget.
You were, as a city council member, I think this next question to me is very important to us because we see the importance of being a majority minority city and a majority minority county. Those two, ethnicities being the Hispanic Latino community and the Black community, the need for Black and brown coalition building. So every candidate in this race identifies in one of those two areas. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to us to ask, how would you build a Black and brown coalition so that the people of Fort Worth actually has more power?
Yeah, we are building a Black-brown coalition. And I would say, in addition to that, we're building a working class coalition, a coalition of people who are tired of working harder and harder for less and less, tired of being exploited, both our lives and our livelihoods. And that's the movement we're building in this campaign. It's something that we have done time and time again my entire life. When we look at my track record on city council, I've been a leader when it comes to Black-brown solidarity. Some of the ordinances and policies that we've led, from establishing the 1 Second Collaborative, which was a countywide initiative to address cyclical and retaliatory gun violence in an era of politics where talking about gun safety was hyperpolarized. In Tarrant County and in Fort Worth, we had a unanimous vote to invest $4 million in community-based gun violence prevention, intervention, street outreach, right? When we look at ordinances that were stop and frisk ordinances, or the curfew ordinance that were disproportionately impacting Black and brown children, particularly Black and brown boys, I was on the forefront of that. When we look at redistricting, the most inclusive, transparent redistricting process, which actually allowed the people to draw maps and submit them, and the city paid for the software to allow them to do it. I wasn't willing to leave that dais until we had a representation that reflected the beautiful diversity of this city. And thanks to the work of so many people, too many to name, in the grassroots, who advocated for fair maps, fair representation, we were able to deliver that. Now we see the reaction to that is all of these mid-decade redistricting. They were aware of what happened in Fort Worth and how Fort Worth elected its first Latina ever in the history of Fort Worth, how for the first time in the city of Fort Worth's history, we had 3 African-Americans sitting on the city council. This is the most inclusive period in our time.
Yeah.
So we're moving into some policy questions
next.
That was
tough. That's a lot
yeah,
there.
it's hard.
It's about to get tougher because you only have 60 seconds for these next two.
So the first policy question, which you have a minute to answer, is that the Tarrant County Jail has been responsible for over 70 deaths since Bill Wayborn became sheriff and has been responsible for sending more juveniles to prison than any other county in Texas. What are some actions that you plan to implement for more accountability and less harm?
First things first, we must remember the lives that were taken due to neglect. More than 70 people have lost their lives in county jails. And it is my job, my responsibility, and all of ours as a community to safeguard human dignity everywhere, and especially for those most vulnerable, including our neighbors under the care of Tarrant County's jail system. And so there's so many policies that we need to move forward to ensure that, yes, diversion programs, ensuring that no one is stuck in jail because of experiencing poverty because they can't afford bail. It's about improving the living conditions in the jails. It's about ensuring that we have solid reentry programs, and ultimately that we're investing in community-based programs like expanding childcare so that no one has to decide whether or not they can afford childcare, and other initiatives to invest in our community, economically included, to ensure that we're reducing the population within Tarrant County jails.
Tarrant County has cut funding to our county hospital, JPS, and shut down the Human Services Department, resulting in harm due to reduced resources. How do you plan to support the health of Tarrant County residents?
Yeah, we need to make sure that everyone has access to public hospitals and health care. And it's a shame that politicians in power have made the failed decision to gut funding in one of the most vital community resources here in Tarrant County. JPS is our level 1 trauma center. JPS provides quality care, and they do everything the community asks for. And time again, the majority on this court has cut funding. I know what it's like to serve on boards appointed by county commissioners. The JPS board is appointed by the county commissioners court. Commissioner Roy Brooks appointed me to the Human Services Advisory Board, and I was there in the trenches standing up for our community when Human Services was under attack. As county commissioner, I'm going to make sure that we expand hospitals all across this county like I did when on city council with the Southwest Medical Home, Roy Charles Brooks Medical Home. And we'll continue to make sure that everyone has access to excellent county services.
So getting even tighter, we just have a few questions that are yes and no questions. Last year, we saw the county dramatically reduce voting locations, primarily in Black and brown neighborhoods. Will you work to expand voting access? Yes or no?
Yes, and I have.
Last year, we saw the county do an unprecedented mid-decade redistricting, specifically to gerrymander Tarrant County in Republicans' favor. Despite us being the largest swing county in the country, do you support keeping the gerrymandered maps?
No, they were stolen.
Last year, we saw the county cut public meetings down to just one meeting a month, even though we are the 14th largest county in the country, leading to meetings 6 to 8 hours long. Do you support returning to more frequent meetings?
Yes, if we need to have meetings in the community.
The county has partnered with ICE since 2017 through a 287G agreement. We're seeing ICE terrorize communities, abducting our neighbors, arresting and murdering Americans. Will you work to end the county's partnership with ICE? Yes, we need to end 287G.
And then our final question is why we should vote for you.
There's a lot at stake in this election. And we're working harder and harder for less and less, and politicians in power couldn't care less about our lives nor our livelihoods. And in many cases, we've seen all across this country, including here in the county, the harm and attacks on our lives and livelihoods. And so as our next county commissioner, and with a majority on the commissioner's court of folks valuing working class people, we're going to work to deliver. We're going to lower the cost of living. We're going to ensure that you and your family have access to excellent county services. And we're going to stand up for our most fundamental rights, including the right to vote and including the right to have your voice heard at the commissioner's court.
All right, so we have Amanda Arizola here to discuss why she's the best for Precinct 2. We're trying to figure out who's the most progressive candidate for this race. We're looking for unapologetically bold progressive candidates, and that's why we're here.
So our first question, which you have 2 minutes to answer, is often people are prompted to run for office because of something that's happened to them personally or an issue that they're focused on. So share with us what made you run for this office.
Yes. Thank y'all for having me here. It's really important, the work that you're doing. One of the reasons that I'm running for this position is because my community asked me to. And that's very important to have community buy-in. I've been doing the work in community through JPS Hospital being the first Latina in that position in 2019. It's a very humbling moment, but it was also really a kind of what the fuck moment. In 2019, first Latina, but when I got into that seat, we had to make sure that our communities had access and financial stabilities within healthcare. And so I worked diligently to make sure that our undocumented, our self-pay patients were accessible and had the things that they needed in order to have a continuum of care. So continuing on that, looking at the gerrymandered political maps also was a really important aspect to me in looking and thinking about the way of which the precinct now goes all the way from Arlington, Mansfield, all the small cities that made up Precinct 2 before, but also to Crowley, Burleson, South Fort Worth, Rosemont. When I looked at that, I'm a proud Rosemont Middle School graduate, as well as an ODY at Mighty Chaparral. And then for the last 13 years, I've been living in Arlington, making my home there and making community. So bringing those two options together really resonated with me and why I'm running.
Well, obviously, as a candidate for this office, you're aware of the extremism that permeates through the county and impacts Tarrant County and Texas. How do you plan to stand up to extremism during these pivotal times?
Yes, absolutely. Doing the things that we've been doing. And I'm really excited about the way community has come out against the extreme things that are happening that we see. So continuing to stand up, say the things that we need to say, and say it out loud, that we do not accept the extremism, the anti-DEI messages, the anti-LGBTQI plus messages. I've spent my life and my career working through community and standing for community. And so we'll continue to work and elevate our activists. And also it's so wonderful to see that our very community members who have never spoken before are coming out and they're tired of it. We've been block walking since December and also talking to folks, and they are just tired of this entire regimen. So continuing to build coalition, to work together and to stand up and be a voice against the extremism that's happening.
So what experience or knowledge separates you from the other candidates that voters should know about?
Absolutely. I think we have some really good candidates. This is a good problem to have. However, I've been doing the work. I'm the only board-appointed county level, even though not elected, but appointed position to JPS. And as y'all know, JPS, $1.6 billion hospital, looking at big, complicated systems, breaking those down. I hold a BA in government and Mexican American studies from University of Texas, Austin. So I'm a Longhorn. I also am a mighty pioneer with an MBA and a master's in health systems management. So I understand the large ecosystems and economic systems that happen. Also, I've been able to work at the federal level with large federal budgets and grant making. So I understand the connections between public, private, and philanthropic work. So, and I was also the state director for the Affordable Care Act implementation. So I drove miles and miles of Texas, talking to members across, making unwilling individuals understand their health care and also their budget. So if I can do that, this is what we need in order to win in November, to bring those coalitions together, but also it's about qualifications and skills and experience.
That falls right into the next question that I think is important, and that's black and brown coalition building. I mean, the county is a minority county. The big cities as well have so much diversity, but we've known in history the black and brown political divide sometimes in this county. And so for us to have a Tarrant County Precinct 2 race where it's just Latinos and black community members, we would love to know what are you going to do, because if you're on that court, it is coordinating between those communities. So what is your ideals or goals of how y'all will be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've spent my career under the principles of human-centered design. So human-centered design states that community has those solutions. And so it's just us working with community to draw out those solutions, give them the opportunities and the skill set to be able to utilize the opportunities around them, and then give that back to community. I was the co-founder of an organization in town called COACT, and we work on health, college homelessness, unhoused students, as well as urban farming. Also been working in coalition and protesting many of the issues that we've had to have coalition together, including marching for our premature babies, pulling up our laces for 287G, and coming out and having those conversations. And us being able to find those commonalities with each other rather than our differences, and coalescing our communities. That's how we're going to continue to stand up. And that's what we're seeing happening right now, to be able to make things and make change happen, and real change to where policy is following through, because they have to listen to us. If we all come together in the ways that y'all have also been able to coalesce community, change will happen. Also voting. We have to make sure that our individuals are getting out, voting on every single one of these races, every single policy and or ballot initiative, because that's where the power lies, and us building coalition.
So we're going to shift into some policy questions, which we'll just have 1 minute to answer.
Yes.
The first one is that Tarrant County Jail has been responsible for over 70 deaths since Bill Wayborn became sheriff, and has been responsible for sending more juveniles to prison than any other county in Texas. What are some actions you plan to implement to be more accountable and for more accountability and less harm?
Yes, absolutely. Unacceptable. Everything that's happening in the county jail right now is unacceptable, because there's not accountability or transparency. And that's one of the purviews of Commissioner's Court, is to look at the total budget for the sheriffs. Unfortunately, the sheriff is an elected body. And again, it goes back down to voting. So voting has consequences. So we have to make sure that we get, in order to change, we have to vote when it's his time to go, and in that election. Looking at how these, and also making sure that the families get the transparency that they need. And that's how I'll be able to work and be able to demand that accountability and demand that transparency.
Tarrant County has cut funding to the county hospital, JPS, and shut down the Human Services Department, resulting in harm due to reduced resources. How do you plan to support the health of Tarrant County residents?
Correct. Amal, JPS is a tremendous resource in Tarrant County. We're a #1 hospital, and we want to be able to continue those resources. When we had our first budget cuts, I stood up and I did not, with a couple of my colleagues, and we did not approve that budget because it was harmful. So the way that we can continue to look at these particular programs is, how are we utilizing skills? How can we utilize programs, and looking at the programs, and especially looking at managed contracts, and the managed contract that we have for now Health and Human Services, demanding metrics. Every dollar should have some type of metric attached to it, and making sure that we're reaching the communities that need the services as they come into the application process, making sure that there is enough individuals to be able to service those works.
Yeah.
So now we're moving into our rapid fire questions, which are just yes or no. How
That's so
challenging
hard.
as that is. Last year, we saw the county dramatically reduce the voting locations, primarily in Black and brown neighborhoods. Will you work to expand voting access? Yes or no?
Hell yes. Yes, absolutely.
Last year, we saw the county do an unprecedented mid-decade redistricting. Last year, we saw the county do an unprecedented mid-decade redistricting, specifically to gerrymander Tarrant County in Republican favor. Despite us being the largest swing county in the country, do you support keeping the gerrymandered maps?
No.
Last year, we saw the county cut public meetings down to just one meeting a month, even though we are the 14th largest county in the country, and lending meetings to go for 6 to 8 hours long. Do you support returning to more frequent meetings?
Absolutely.
The county has partnered with ICE since 2017 through a 287G agreement. We're seeing ICE terrorize communities, abducting our neighbors, arresting and murdering Americans. Will you work to end the county's partnership with ICE? Yes or no?
Yes. But it's in the entanglements. We have to look at the entanglements and the budget. There's a big vote coming up. I know that was yes or no, but
You will get 60 seconds to tell us why we should vote for you.
yes, absolutely. Again, this race is about qualification, skill, experience, also resident support, community. And so I bring a wealth of knowledge into these spaces of being able to bridge, again, public, private, and philanthropic. I think that's some of the missing pieces that we don't often see, is making sure that people are at the table. We have to talk to community. And that's one of the things that I did at JPS, was being accessible to community. Everybody had my cell phone number all the time, making sure that our community has the resources and the needs that that are important to them. So looking at affordability, looking at affordable housing, working on not only developments, but also asset protections. How are we creating our communities to be able to live, work, and thrive? And that's what I bring in working in both large systems and small systems, through federal government, through local systems, and I bring that skill and experience. So that's why you should vote for me.
All right, so we have Gabe Rivas. We're trying to figure out who is the most progressive candidate for this race. We're looking for unapologetically bold, progressive candidates, and we're here to find that out.
All right.
So our first question is, often people are prompted to run for office because of something that has happened to them personally or an issue that they are focused on. What made you run for this office?
Well, I mean, my decision to run for office came from my life experiences here. I mean, I'm from Precinct 2. I've worked in candidates campaigns and organizing in my neighborhood, registering voters. And over the last 3 years now, just over 3 years, I'd worked for the commissioner's office in Precinct 2 as director of community outreach. So my decision to run for office came from a desire to continue the work that I've done in my whole adult career of, serving the people of Precinct 2, serving the people of Arlington, Mansfield, and continue to make sure that the government that we have is going to be responsive to them and listening to them. And that's not what we have right now. So I just, we all know how the Commissioner's Court has been, how Judge O'Hare has been treating basically, the public's voice as an inconvenience to them. And that's, I believe in a government that is a net good in people's lives. And so far, that's not what the Republican leadership of Tarrant County seems to view its role in government. We saw that even just, not allowing for Trinity Metro to be able to take people to the polls, saying that's not our role in government, is to make voting easier for people. And I see making the lives of people easier, making voting easier, making their pocketbook decisions easier is definitely a role of county government. And so over my career, that's where I've seen my role to be, and I feel like this is the logical next step to make sure Tarrant County is doing what it needs to do.
Well, as you worked on Commissioner Simmons' staff, you got to get an up-close view of the extremism that has oozed into the county. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of our listeners and people that care about this community are really worried about the extremism that's going on in Tarrant County. We have become the epicenter of extremism. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do as a commissioner to fight against extremism?
Definitely. I mean, one thing we got to realize is that we're not, it shouldn't be that way in any county, but we're not a small county. We're not a monolithic county where all our communities are the same. We have such a diverse population, and the government needs to be able to represent that. We're early voting is going to start on February 17th, which is Mardi Gras, but that means that the 18th is Ash Wednesday. We're going in the Lenten season. So these Christian nationalists that see as their role of controlling the reins of government and impacting that with their narrow view of what a Christian government should look like. I mean, the reason why it's called, in Spanish, Lent is Cuaresma. And it's Cuaresma because it's the 40 days before Lent, and kind of reflecting the 40 days that, in the Bible accounts as Jesus was out in the desert. He was out there being tempted by Satan. And one of the last temptation of Jesus was, hear all the governments of the earth, and it's all yours if you just bow down and worship me. I mean, the temptation was giving the reins of government. That is presented in the Bible account as the temptation of Satan. And so I think that it's something that we need to hold back, resist. I mean, I would say resist, but honestly, we progressives, people that are fighting for social justice, this is the natural path of society. this is the way the society is going. This is the way the demographics of Tarrant County is going. We're not the resistance. It's the extremists. It's the authoritarian tendencies, the MAGA tendencies. That's what's resisting the natural trend of government and natural trend of society. So we're the ones doing what needs to be done to make our society better, to make it more responsive, more diverse. And I think we're just recognizing that and making sure that we amplify the voices of every resident of Tarrant County Precinct 2 is going to go a long way to making sure that our government and our Tarrant County represents those people and not a narrow political view, a narrow interest view.
So you touched on this a little bit, but what is your experience or knowledge that separates you from the other candidates that voters should know about?
Well, like I said, not only having lived in Precinct 2 my whole life, but having worked in the government, I know the department heads, the individuals there, the personalities, those levers of government that need to be operated, so I don't have a learning curve when I come into office. I see my experience as director of community outreach in Precinct 2 as kind of the role of a commissioner. So I feel like in a lot of ways I've been doing a lot of the roles of commissioner. I mean, not only being out in the community, talking to people, doing constituent services, but also looking over these agendas, really delving in deep on the contracts and the attachments and items. I mean, we've seen those agendas now, especially that we're at once a month. Those agendas are massive and long, and the items you got to have like a law degree to be able to read all of them. I think that my experience has been knowing what really the real actions of the county government are, and making sure that we can start getting move it in the right direction. So.
Well, one of the things we're really excited about this Commissioner 2 race is that every single one of you are a minority represented from a minority group in the county. And since Tarrant County is a majority minority county, and those two ethnic groups being Latinos in the Black community, we think the greatest power and potential for progressive policy is more Black and brown coalition building. But we know in our history that doesn't always seem to happen between both camps of communities. So as a Latino who would be on a dais with Black community members, if you win, what are we going to do to interweave and build power, progressive power in this county?
Yeah, I mean, any progressive victory we've had has been through those coalitions. I mean, anytime we have a big tent party in the Democratic Party, we have a lot of different viewpoints, different life experiences that have been lived that have come together to form the diversity of our party. And sometimes that does come with friction. And anyone that lives in a big family knows that. So you always have big friction, but you always have to come together as a family. And we're not going to flip Tarrant County without those coalitions. So I think working with the people in my community, making sure I have a diverse staff, making sure that we are responsive to those voices and actually out in the community listening to people, and working with our Black and brown representatives, my colleagues on the commissioner's court is going to go a long way for that. We, it's not even just a strategy to win elections. That's a strategy to govern. We're not going to be able to govern well ignoring most of the population. We have a majority minority county. So there's going to be issues that affect all of us, all across the board. People, no matter what their skin color, are going to have the same pocketbook issues that need to be addressed. But there are specific lived experiences that me as a Latino, I'm not going to know what the experience of an African American living in Precinct 2 is unless I ask them, unless I talk to them, unless we connect and amplify their voices and make sure their voices are heard.
So shifting into some policy questions, which you'll just have 1 minute to answer. The first one is Tarrant County Jail has been responsible for over 70 deaths since Bill Wayborn became sheriff and has been responsible for sending more juveniles to prison than any other county in Texas. What are some actions that you plan to implement for more accountability and less harm?
We across the country incarcerate too many people. The Tarrant County Jail has a problem that first of all, our sheriff is too busy with other issues, national issues, trying to grandstand on things to really focus on the jail. We need to make sure that there's true jail accountability. And that's going to look like making sure that we have our mental health and our JPS being the forefront in there, making sure that when people come in, that they are being taken care of. We call people in jail that they're in custody. The people that are in custody, that means we're their custodians. And so I think most of the in custody deaths have not necessarily been from use of force. Obviously, we've had some horrible use of force incidents that have resulted in deaths in the jail. But even in this case of Anthony Johnson Jr., he had mental health issues and should have not been sitting in a jail cell. He should have been getting treatment. We need to make sure that we're focusing on the services provided to our in custody inmates.
Another big topic is the JPS hospital and the Human Services Department. Tarrant County has cut funding to the county hospital and to the department, resulting in harm and reducing those resources. How do you plan to support the health and well-being of Tarrant County residents?
Yeah, we need to start thinking like we're a big county. We need to make sure that our services are reflective of that, and we cannot keep cutting our departments to service a political agenda of just cutting taxes to cut taxes. We have the tax base that can support the services that we need. I mean, JPS is our safety net hospital. If we don't have a hospital that is, out and able to service the people, then we're not going to be a good county. We're not going to be able to thrive as a county. I think that's going to have to look like doing more than just the buildings downtown. I mean, we passed the citizens, taxpayers passed a bond, and we need to make sure that that bond is going towards the facilities out in the neighborhoods, out in the precincts, having the community clinics, the health centers, mobile clinics if needed, because preventative health is going to be what's going to take to make sure that first time people go to the see a doctor is not at the ER. I had a constituent that had just gotten pregnant, was looking for how they can get some women's health issues with JPS, and they were told their wait time was a year. Well, that's not how pregnancies work. So we need to have some more preventative health to make sure people are getting the health care they need.
So our final questions are rapid fire questions with yes or no answers. The first is, last year we saw the county dramatically reduce voting locations, primarily in Black and brown neighborhoods. Will you work to expand voting access? Yes or no?
Yes.
Last year, we saw the county do an unprecedented mid-decade redistricting, specifically to gerrymander Tarrant County in Republicans' favor, despite us being the largest swing county in the country. Do you support keeping the gerrymandered maps? Yes or no?
No.
And last year, we saw the county cut public meetings down to just one meeting a month, even though we are the 14th largest county in the country, leading to meetings that last 6 to 8 hours long. Do you support returning to more frequent meetings?
Absolutely. Yes.
The county has partnered with ICE since 2017 through a 287G agreement. We're seeing ICE terrorize communities, abducting our neighbors, arresting and murdering Americans. Will you work to end county partnerships with ICE? Yes or no?
Yes.
And then our final question is just allowing you in 60 seconds to tell us why the Precinct 2 residents should vote for you.
Well, I think people in Precinct 2 should vote for me because I'm ready on day one. I'm going to be the one that is going to be there to fight for their interest. So a lot of those yes or no issues, some of the forefront of what I've been working on already. That was my task is in the commissioner's office is working on the redistricting, making sure that we could get the people's response on there. We knew there was going to be an uphill battle because of how the court is composed of right now. But, any government that is scared of its voters, they shouldn't be in office. And so I'm going to be someone that is going to be there to listen to the voters, making sure that our residents are heard, making sure that they're not scared of their government, whether that's to speak at commissioner's court or to be able to call 911 if they're in the unincorporated areas. I talked to people just yesterday that were afraid to call 911 about services they need. They have people parking on their streets that they would like to call and do something about that, but they're afraid right now of the sheriff's department and their agreements with ICE, what that might mean if they're going to come check their papers. So we need to have a government that's there for good for people, and that's why I'm running.
So we started off being grateful that we have 3 quality candidates running for District 2, and we just wrapped up discussions with each of them, some rapid fire questions and answers, different from our normal format.
Yes, I'm feeling weird about it because I think I might have overdone it on the fairness part of it, because I know when we were figuring out the format, Anne hates 60-second answers, but as someone who's had to put together a lot of debates,
anybody who's run for office hates 60-second formats, just to be clear.
I totally understand, but also it's usually in the first 15 seconds you can tell if they're worth a damn. But I realized in this race we have all good candidates. So it's it's really 60 seconds. It's hard to really know, but I'm going to be very curious to see how listeners, viewers felt about that format. Because I know one thing that we all felt is the second we cut, just the laughing and the conversations afterwards, like that was really good stuff. And so
it's also kind of who we are as a
Yeah.
pod,
Yeah.
more getting to know people.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like my ADD behind just does not want to sit there
And
and
read
say
a
the same
question.
thing so many times. And then I think the avenues of wanting to double click on some things, right?
For sure.
Those are the just areas. Just thinking about how much history Gabe Rivas has with the redistricting process.
Yeah.
because he was a staffer, right? Jared
And
with
Jared did
city
redistricting
council,
at city
and
council.
redistricting, and then when we got to the JPS conversation,
Amanda
with
has a
Amanda,
great history
yeah.
with
So it's
that.
like you could. There's things I wanted to double click on that due to the flow we couldn't, but I think that
Or
was
I think
I-
due to the worry that it wouldn't be fair if we
Yes.
followed up with some and didn't follow
Yeah.
up with
Yes.
others. So that kind of made us stick to a more regimented question.
Yeah, I feel like the format we went with helps you compare across them better because everything's equal. But yeah, like there's so much more to learn about all these candidates.
Yeah, and this is it's a tough race because, like you said, like I think if you're gonna rank these candidates from a quality perspective, they're all in the, 8 and higher on a 1 through 10 scale. So it's not like you're getting like Chris Nettles race, and then you got some like wild person going against Chris Nettles. These are all high caliber people that
Yeah.
you can work with, get things done in some type of progressive format. And I think why it's hard for us to maybe, or me individually as a person, to decide, I'm glad I don't have to vote in this race. But it's like the biggest part, it's like there's people we do organizing work or who love the podcast in all three camps. And so it's like in the sense of community, in the sense of the people I love and respect, that is what makes this really hard because I don't really have a deep relationship with any of the three. But the people around them, I have very deep relationships. And that is to me, the part is like, I'm respecting this process, but maybe when we get into, if there's a runoff, I highly
Well, and what didn't come up at all is general and who can beat in the general.
Yeah,
We didn't even discuss that at all.
I mean, I think the good part is like because they're all pretty equally good, then I feel like that's a part of it. But we will, whoever wins the primary, we'll definitely have them on a full episode.
And if it goes into a runoff, I will say we'll have
Yes.
1 hour meeting episodes for each person.
I like that. Yes, absolutely.
Because someone has to win 51%.
yeah.
All right, beautiful people. So we have a lot to discuss for short stories. We were just going to have the panelists and we're going to move on, watch the Bad Bunny Bowl, and like everything's going to be good. But look it to happen right after the Super Bowl. You know what the city and the county decides to do? Probably have their most important meetings they're going to have all year.
On the same day.
On the same day.
Gosh.
And I have another meeting that day.
Yeah. So
It's really inconvenient.
So we have 3 short stories and they're all important and they all include a lot of action. And so we're just going to take them one by one. We're going to start with the county commissioners, then we're going to go to the city council, and then we're going to talk about Fort Worth ISD. So let's go ahead and dive into county commissioners.
So the very first article we have is new rules would limit Tarrant County jail discussion, residents' input at public meetings. If you thought that the reduction and the limitations and the cutting people off and the restrictions that the county already had on public comment was bad, they're about to try to make it even worse.
Yeah.
They want to limit the time that you can speak on all the things that you might be interested in discussing at a county commissioners meeting to the 3 minutes, which
Yeah.
city council already did. I found that out the last time I went to speak, and I was wanting to speak on 2 items, and I was limited to just the one amount of time for both items.
And which we can change that in a vote. So please, city council, spit that to actually make real public comments. Now, the part though there is like, when you look at Tarrant County Commissioner reduced the meetings from, we used to have 2 public meetings to now 1. That 1 has now been 8 hours long. But the reason why it's 8 hours long is because now the agenda is huge, but then you can sign up and get 3 minutes on each agenda item. And so if I was there at the last one in January, you got some of the same people, like I'm speaking 5 times at the commissioner's court meeting. So that means if they hold those 3 minutes, you would get 15 minutes to talk. But now, because of their own doing, they now want to impact us even more because they're the ones who decide to have 1 monthly meeting, but now they don't want to hear us for 15 minutes. So now they're going to, so in that same situation now, they're voting on a situation where in that same predicament, if I want to talk about 5 things, now we'll only have 3 minutes.
For all 5 things.
But well, here it gets worse. They're putting it where if it's over 20 minutes, they can move to 20 people, it can move it 2 minutes. If it's like around 35 to 40 people, they can do 1 minute. So 1 minute for the entire commissioner's court meeting.
For everything that you want to say about what happens in Tarrant
Right.
County in the entire month.
And they're cramming everything into one meeting a month. So it's often that there are multiple things on the agenda that you might be interested in speaking on.
And the corruption is like insane. Like if you watch the full commissioner's court meeting and like if you're there, like I was there for the whole thing last time, you have a family there to talk about their kid being murdered in a jail. You have, I mean, on this docket, you have recapturing 2 people. 2 people left the prison system and got recaptured. Like the things that are on there, the giving PILF more money, the people who drew the racial gerrymander, the amount of corruption that's like on each agenda. So now for us to go down to 1 minute, it's like scary to try to actually hold them accountable on anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of, do you want to talk about what else is on the agenda at Commissioner's Court?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for bringing it up now. It's like the biggest one is the state grant for ICE so that they can start doing street compliance in Tarrant County. And what's important for all of us to know is that, yes, we've had our 287G since 2017, 2018.
Well, it would help to have some context for what that is.
287G?
Mm-hmm.
You probably know better than me.
Well, yeah, my understanding of 287G is that it basically forces the county sheriff's hand to, if anyone is in custody in Tarrant County Jail, they have to work with ICE. They have to look if that person is here documented or not, and if they're not, hand them over to ICE.
Yeah, but that's what makes this state thing concerning is that this is $140,000 to do street sweeps to actually be more proactive as
So
ICE.
not just if people come into the jail system,
Yep.
but out on the street.
Exactly.
So like that is like, but with only $140,000 to now implement street, compliance with the state of Texas, whatever that means, on trying to identify people and stereotype them of who they are.
Racial profiling.
Yeah, it's gonna cost way more money than $140,000. So what's the point of trying to even have this? And the big kicker is they already celebrated this on January 15th. They did a whole press conference. Kelly Hancock was there. Manny Ramirez talked. Tim O'Hare spoke. And they like bragged about how committed they are to ICE. But then when you look at what Governor Abbott's giving you for actually being corrupt, only $140,000 if you dance and do what he tells you to do, and then you're still going to spend more money as a county?
Well, and also like, aren't they having like a huge staffing problem because like no one wants to be in the county sheriff's office, and so now they're loading up those cops with even more work to do, like work that no one should be doing.
Yeah, they're already spread thin, and every single time that this issue has been brought up, law enforcement has actually spoken out and said that this is not something that makes our community safer.
Yes,
it actually makes
way
citizens
less
and
safe.
residents of the county fearful of law enforcement and makes them not want to call for help in situations where they need help because this is being added to the mix.
And that's another big part there is you're having these, like they decided, they were so confident, they had the press release for this before it was even approved on the agenda item.
I think they did this once before too.
Yeah.
Where they hadn't voted on something and they were celebrating it as if it was already a done deal.
But this is why it's like so important for us to like, as community members, this is our chance that if you are about this, like we need to stand up to ICE, this is the moment. You're not going to have another slip up and you're not going to have 3 minutes again. So this is like critical mass of us to stand up against ICE in Tarrant County and show Judge Tim O'Hare, show Manny Ramirez, who are on the diet, who are on this upcoming November election, that this is not what we want, and they should see clearly from the SD9 activation of Hispanic voters. They need to see Latino community members looking them in the eye and saying, "You better not be doing this. And if you're doing this, you're
done.
You're done. Your career is over." We can eliminate Judge Tim O'Hare and Manny Ramirez from the conversation right now, this week. And everyone knows that this is who they are. And this is how they're tone deaf. Like they don't actually listen to the constituents.
They don't feel like they have to.
Yeah. So it's going to be bring some snacks.
Well, I do wonder, like, with the order of the agenda, are they doing the change to your time at the beginning and it immediately go into effect? Like, should people be planning for
Definitely plan for a 1 minute. Definitely plan for a 1 minute.
1 minute to cover everything you want to say?
Well, no. I think you're going to get 1 minute for every agenda item. So the other ones I'm signed up for, I have to remember and look, is Brian Willett, the judge who is
got
getting
taken off the wheel for representing people.
From
even though
last
he's
week's
the
episode.
only judge who's
Who has
double certified.
accreditation and certification in that area.
Yeah. And I saw him speak, and I mean that guy is really cool. But he's coming on the pod March 8th. I don't know if you guys know that. Sorry.
You did tell us.
And then you have this ICE thing, which to me, and then you have the 3 minutes thing. The other one is the reports that we talked about, where they're not going to have to report on a jail death. So these follow-up reports, they're not going to have to, like, they're just done with doing these, because Elisa Simmons keeps saying, I want to report on the death. And now they're being able to vote that they don't have to do that.
So they can just murder people without even acknowledging it.
Yeah, and then the other one is, I think, the mentoring
But to Wesley's point, I don't think that even if they voted on this at the beginning of the meeting, I don't think that they would put
Immediately
it
go into effect.
Implementation in this meeting. It would be for the meetings going forward.
They already don't give a shit about the laws. So
Yeah, well, they
I
might
wouldn't
do
put it past
but
them.
like you said, I think be prepared for the worst,
Yeah.
as EJ just said.
And the other big part here is, though, they know that, I mean, we didn't have this in the short stories, but February 1st, the Republican powwow, a Republican group showing up together for the Mercy Culture conversation. Well, at Mercy Culture, you had Don Huffines, you had Ken Paxton showing up, Judge Tim O'Hare, and a bunch of interesting individuals. One guy running for Attorney General, and they went and spoke. And so that was February 1st, right after the Taylor Remitt race. And that was a bunch of scariness, if I've ever seen any. I mean, I don't even know. I would play the video, that the See It, Name It, Fight It video, just for people to hear how terrifying it is that what we heard. And in there, Tim O'Hare's talking about, like, this is bad. He was very scared. And so this is, to me, his move, because he knows, number one, what makes me look bad. And I saw this when canvassing with Nydia this weekend. A guy said, I was like, do you know Tim O'Hare? He's like, oh, that's the guy who shuts people off. I've seen it on social media. And so it's like, he knows that the way he gets into the limelight is by people keeping him accountable publicly and these videos being created. And so how do I stop that? Let me shrink the time and let me make sure now you have 80% less time to do the things that we were doing. And that's also why Mayor Maddie Parker was trying to attempt this stuff at city council as well. And so now it's Tim O'Hare's turn to try to, it's weirdly interesting. City council usually tries to model the county, but the county's now learning from the city on how to reduce public comments.
Well, I mean, that brings us into what's happening Tuesday at city council.
Yep. So the city charter is being looked at. This was something that they had discussed in a work session prior. But this charter election amendment includes doubling the council's salary, expanding the city manager's authority. It could be on the ballot in May for the city of Fort Worth.
Yeah,
Wesley has thoughts.
I do have
So
thoughts.
let me set the tone. I feel like I love when Ann intros, she reads the newspaper part, but it's like, set the tone. We got to say, this is an $800 million bond.
Yep.
And we're about to set what we're going to be able to vote on for May's election.
Well,
right?
it's not even just that. Like, the main thing, a part of this story is the charter amendments. So,
but those are also voted on in May.
at the same,
Yeah, it's on the same election.
Yes, but we've been having the bond conversation for quite a while, and it seems like at the very last minute they were like, "Oh, by the way, we can do some charter amendments," and they just like crammed them in with like, there's so little time to respond to any of it.
But I want the tone that needs to, like, I just want to make sure people understand is that this Tuesday night, the city is making decisions on an $800 million bond and these random charter amendments that just showed up. So when we talk about this is a busy activist kind of community day, both the county and the city is playing around on trying to make some big decisions on one day. So this one's at county commissioners at 10 a.m., starts at 10 a.m., will probably go up until 6 p.m. I actually think there might be some people who don't get to speak who wanted to speak at both. And then you're going to City Hall, which starts at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So that's the tone, but you're going into these charter amendments that you're mad about because we had some here at the gather that we could have talked to them about.
Well, absolutely. That was one thing that shocked me. It was like back in August at one of our gathers, we were having proactive policy discussions, and a lot of the things we want to fix with the city can kind of only be done in a charter amendment. And we all got busy trying to fix public comment. And I was so shocked how even talking with city staff, they didn't really clock that this was a possibility. And I'm
Well, in the past, when they've done charter elections, they've had a charter election committee, which included people from the community to have these conversations. So I was kind of waiting for that to be brought back up again. But then the timeline started to get so tight. I was like, they're clearly not going to be doing that. So they did discuss it in work session. The staff came back with some recommendations. They discussed it in another work session, and they've axed one of the ideas that was on there because they all agreed that that was not something they wanted to move forward with. But they are moving forward with looking at the salaries for council members, which, to be clear, we have all said we're in favor of council members getting paid more. And
100%.
I absolutely am. Because I think it broadens the diversity of people who can serve us. And that means that the people who serve us better reflect the community that they're serving.
Yeah.
So we're 100% behind that.
Yeah. Because if it doesn't pay a living wage, then you're not going to get working class people. You're just going to get rich, retired people or people who are working more jobs than they have time for to do a good job as city council.
Yeah.
And so the new, the requested amount that they're looking to bump it up to is $50,000 for city council members and $60,000 for the mayor. So then my argument to everyone, does that actually do anything? Does that change? I'm thinking about if I'm a black or brown leader who is the main provider of my family, that still is not the number that I would need to feel comfortable. So at the end of the day, the city council job will still need another job.
Yeah.
Still at the end of the day. So this to me, I know you have the idea of like the average of city staff. I like the average of maybe, I think I heard this from Chris Tackett, but the average of like of Fort Worth residents as a whole, like the collective whole of Fort Worth residents.
I don't know how you get that number,
yeah.
but it would be very interesting.
Yeah, like
I would like
medium
to know what
salary.
that number is because
Yeah.
it might be really, really low.
Yes,
it might be even lower than what
I-
what is being proposed here.
Yeah. But then
I-
that's also like, to me, like I'm at, when I look at the county commissioners make over $220,000 and get a car allowance, I'm a believer that let's
Retirement and all kinds of stuff.
And so
Yeah,
let's be
that
clear, the
pension
city
is
council
wild.
budget is twice, almost 3 times larger than the county budget. So these individuals are working on a larger budget than the county. They have to do a lot more in cheerleading, and being in front of the public. So in my mind, 150 grand is a good start because now you get real talented people who are willing to leave and go full time. But I think you put a lot of requirements.
Yes.
You can't have a second job.
Yes.
Because that second job, you're working at Lockheed. Now that's weird. Or you're
Yep.
working at
Conflict
a
of
nonprofit.
interest. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will still have $50,000 to $60,000 city council members, but they still have these second jobs. So it doesn't beat that purpose, which is why I'm still a believer of let's raise it. But progress here. And I
Yeah,
think everyone should go to
absolutely.
city
Yes.
council and advocate for it.
Well, and
Absolutely.
the concern is that this will be the third time that they've brought this. And I don't think that they can advocate for it as strongly as needs to be advocated for in order to convince people that this is the right thing to do. But if you look at what we're asking them to do, I mean, one of the things that they axed from the charter was reducing the amount of people that needed to be there in order to have a quorum. And it was very clearly stated by several of the council members that they believe that they're supposed to be there for all the
Yes,
meetings. And so we don't
absolutely.
need to be reducing the amount of meetings that we need to be attending. But that also is a sacrifice if they're not being compensated to a level that allows them to attend all those meetings and be where they need to be if they're having another job that they're doing.
Yeah. One of my other concerns with this is, for one, it has a dollar amount, which last time we saw an exact dollar amount, it got voted down quite a bit. But also, like we said, this dollar amount isn't enough if you're like raising a family to do this full time. But we would have to vote for an increase every time. That's why I think tying it to an average helps with that cost of living increase, because this is going to be, like you said, like we've done this 3 times now. And even if we do this, we're going to have to do it again. So
But I think last time what lampooned it a little bit was tying the raises to something that was out of the voters' control. The complaints I heard were from the voters saying that they didn't want to have that control taken away from them. So if you tie it to salaries of the employees, then it isn't brought back to the voters. So we have to decide.
Well, I heard the opposite argument where tying it to district directors, they could indirectly affect their salary. So they don't just dictate what the district or the department director's salary is, but the city manager does, and they vote for the city manager. So they could vote in a city manager who's like, oh, absolutely, I'll increase all the department heads' salaries so that y'all can get more money. Like that, I think it was part of the issue that I heard, and that's why I think tying it to average city staff pay is the best solution.
I like that from a lens of now your incentives are aligned with the people, right? You want to raise salaries, you want to raise the floor.
You literally can't manipulate it without benefiting a lot of people.
I get that, and I think that's a good thing to look at.
Yeah, it's similar to the conversation around corporations that have such wide gaps between like the CEO and the people that work there, and bringing that gap closer together and not allowing that to happen.
Yeah, which they do in Europe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we need to move to some other charters.
Yes. So some of the other things we saw, it seems like a lot of these charter amendments were proposed by city manager's office to make their life easier. So one of them that concerned me was that an amendment would allow the city manager to have the ability to create, consolidate, and abolish departments without a council vote. Immediately came to mind is, can you imagine if the getting rid of the diversity and inclusion department happened without public comment? No, the city managers did that on their own. We wouldn't have any opportunity to say what kind of city we want to live in and why this shouldn't be done.
And in watching the discussion amongst the council members, I think the points that were being made was that we're a city manager form of government, and some of our charter things put things in the hands of the elected officials that should be in the city manager's hands.
And who was saying that?
I can't remember. I think it was staff basically saying that's
so
the reason that they're bringing these
it's either
here
staff or it's either Maddie or it's either Macy. There is no way this is a good thing. There's zero chance that this should even be discussed. Like, what makes me so frustrated is like, I got to wake up and make Instagram videos to tell people something. And I was like, I got to pick between ice in our effing streets or Jay Choppa trying to be a dictator and control the city hall. And what's frustrating is the Latinos at the end of the day. I got to worry about Manny Ramirez about to vote in ICE. And I got Carlos over here who was solely reducing minutes over here. Manny's reducing minutes over here. And now Jay Choppa wants to remove people's comments when we're talking about departments. And the DEI is pivotal to the success of the progressive values that Fort Worth has always had, but yet was able to awaken because of the DEI vote, which has created so much momentum for us as community members. And he is now going to sit and say, we cannot allow the people to activate with so much power. And so I am now going to make decisions about when and things get removed. This is like this. If you care about Fort Worth and you can't make it the county commissioners, I need people to show up and be bussing on this idea, because this is absolutely crazy. And at least it's crazy in the lens of you brought it out of nowhere. Maybe if you would have sat us all down, you've been going to the country clubs all this time, talking, doing the road show. Did this come up once in your road show as you walk around the areas of the county of the city you like to? Did this come up? Did the constituents of the country clubs tell you, hey, we like you so much, Jay, that you didn't even have to go through the right interview process. And hey, you don't even have to go through the right decisions of having to talk to the public anymore. His mindset is that public comment is inefficient to running a city. That is a problem, regardless if you believe in a mayor-led government or a city manager government.
Well, as someone who has advocated for public engagement and expanding public engagement and all of that, I totally 100% agree that we shouldn't be doing anything that reduces the amount of time that the city spends engaging the public on decisions that they're making. As someone who has been city staff and has been in a field of city planning, where I believe that people who know how to run a city should have, I like the city manager form of government, and I watch cities that are mayor-led that undo things just overnight and destroy things. So down in Houston, we had a mayor come in and decide that all the Safe Streets initiatives that were going on were not something that he wanted to continue doing, and they're ripping out infrastructure. So I like the idea of people who've gone to school to learn how to do things, bringing things to the elected officials. So I don't agree with getting carte blanche to remove departments and all that without a conversation, but I do like professionals bringing the ideas to be considered.
And if Jay Chapo wants to bring, I want to, eliminate a department, great. Then we go to the council and then the council votes.
Yeah.
Great. Like, that's why I like the public collective as a whole. The mayor's only power is to set the agenda, but we have,
Yeah, mayor has the same vote as anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is literally why democracy is why we fight for it.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. Is there other ones we need to bring up?
Oh, absolutely. There's another one where the city manager could fire department heads and council appointees without a written statement or a public hearing. And to me, this seems about how the city likes everything to look nice. They don't want to see any dirt slinging in public. But my worry is always we need to plan for bad faith actors. Like if someone is going around just gutting department heads, we need things in place to prevent that from happening. So I don't think this is a good idea. I understand why they would propose it. Like they don't want a disgruntled employee coming yelling at city council, and city council doesn't want to get yelled at. But
they can't make any difference in the decision anyway. They would rather it go to court, is what the attorney said in the work session when they were discussing this. If there's a gripe, somebody who wants to challenge their being fired, take it through an employment case.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think I feel like court is the muscle of the rulers. Court is just pressing you down on the rules and having the money and the power
To be able to do that.
If I'm a person who feels like I need people to know what's happening, I need to step out in community. Like I feel like there needs to be written communication to the people. If I've seen this person in our lives, or I've been emailing this person, and now this person's just not here because you want to eliminate them, and I, as a person who paid taxes and was really thrilled about this system that we have operated in, and I feel like you deserve to tell the public why.
Yeah. And without a robust media covering these things and telling us what's going on, it's a lot to keep track of.
I'm gonna start calling him Jay Chapo at this point, guys.
Another one that has me really fired up is that one amendment would allow the council to approve the budget at the exact same required public meeting. So that would mean that with no delay in between. So I already hate how the city views public meetings as performative. They're just checking the box to say that they did something. If this passes, it will be so performative, where the moment that we learn what the final budget is will be the exact moment that they pass it. So there's nothing you can say that would have time for them to change it, to make any adjustments in the budget. That should not be allowed. Our voice should matter. And so there needs to be time between when the budget is publicly presented to the residents of Fort Worth and when city council votes on it. The city staff seems like they want to just streamline it, which I understand. The budget process is a very long, complicated process.
Yeah.
And we have never prioritized community public input in how the budget is made and how we affect it. The budget is a moral document. It shows what our priorities are, and we as the residents of Fort Worth should have a very significant say in how that money is being spent.
Yeah, I think going back to the way it's been done in the past, it has been very performative, and they didn't expect people to have an opinion about these things. And what they did when I was there was they always fell back to, as staff, we take into consideration everything that's brought to us from the community throughout the year. And so that's what informs our budget. And so, but without having that feedback loop being transparent and public, we don't know that to be the case. And so we're constantly having to remind people, this budget didn't just come out of the staff's brains. It came from the things that were expressed during the whole year and even beyond that, because they've got backlogs of things that are not getting budgeted. But to your point about it being a moral document, it absolutely is. And the way that we do it right now does not reflect that at all, because we are not showing those feedback loops. And it does take more work, and it is more challenging to go about a budgeting process in a way that would be more reflective and have that community feedback. Because right now it just seems like they present it, make a few tweaks maybe, or say, yeah, we had all these public meetings and we only heard from this many people, so that's not really reflective of the whole community. But I'm like, are you hearing from these other people to do it differently somewhere where we're not hearing it? So I absolutely believe that we should have it be a more engaged process with more absolute feedback explaining why you did or didn't change something after going through the process of having public input.
Absolutely. Another amendment that they have on here is to remove the requirement for public utilities to report to council. I'm sure it's a lot of work to put together those reports, but I don't understand why this would even be proposed. Like, shouldn't the council be aware of the work being done in the city and things that affect all of the residents?
I think all those reports are being done by those utilities to begin with, so I don't know why it wouldn't need to be. Maybe it's just a matter of, does the council need to hear it? I don't know.
I want them to be aware of as much as possible. So.
And then we are aware that they're not aware of a lot of stuff that they should be aware of.
Yep, very true. But yeah, so we alluded to it earlier, is that one of the amendments that was pitched at the work session, it was knocked down about quorum. So right now,
this is a big meeting. I'm just so worked up with ICE in the county.
But they knocked this one off, so we don't have to go find it at the meeting.
This one we don't have to worry about.
The majority of the council expressed that they all should be there and that they shouldn't reduce the number of people that it makes for a quorum. First of all, there was the complication of, if you have a supermajority vote, you have to have more than what the knocked down quorum would have been, or you would have needed to have unanimous vote from everybody that was there in the less numbers required. And so it was Councilwoman Peoples who basically said, we haven't not had quorum since I've been here, and I think that the people expect us all to show up for our job and be making these decisions. And so I don't think we should reduce the quorum requirements, even though some other cities do and all of those things.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring that one up because even though it won't be presented on Tuesday, it is nice when we do get to see our city council members actually doing the right thing. So yes. I want them to get credit for it.
Standing up for not going forward with something that was not a great idea.
Yes, indeed.
Wrapping up this short story, Wesley, I think it's important for in the description to kind of have the charter, like if you can make a list of the ones that are going to be on there with your recommendations on what we're saying yes and no to. But then what I'm going to try to do, because I like giving myself more work than I actually have time to do, is I am going to try to make basic prompts for each one of them. So when people come up to speak, you have a prompt to go off of to speak upon. The two that I think are the most important is advocating for salaries. And then number two is not giving Jay Chapa that power. And so those would be those two. So thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for all the wisdom you have on the knowledge. I felt like if I was a city council member, I would need to be listening to this episode and, look good the next day. So now let's move into short story number 3, which is we're going to talk about the Safe Schools proposal. So if you think, Sabrina Ball can't do more, she runs bridges, she runs No Kings, and she's also making sure our kids in schools are safe. And so her and several groups at the Indivisible group are talking about how to make sure ICE is not storming into our schools or seeking to create disruption in our schools. So they have created a proposal called the Safe Schools on Campus, a policy proposal that are going to ensure that if ICE is showing up in Fort Worth ISD, that they will be directed to Fort Worth ISD. And so the actual Fort Worth ISD school board meeting for this specific policy that they're advocating for is going to be on the 24th. And so we have some time, but I want this to be our short story number 3 because a lot of the community organizers I'm speaking with are seeing happening that this rise, this ICE at county commissioner is going to be the next domino, but you've already seen another couple dominoes fall, and that's kids standing up against ICE and doing the students doing their own protests. You have Governor Abbott showing up and saying, hey, all right, if kids are doing that, they're going to be marked absent, and you now need to that
not
impacts
just
your
marked
dollars.
Absent. That was something they were already doing. But what he stood up and said is that schools should be punished if they participated in, facilitated, allowed these students to protest.
Which that's concerning because facilitate is a very broad word, and I know a lot of the schools where the kids were protesting, the faculty was out there making sure the kids were safe.
Exactly.
Would that count as facilitating?
Yes, and Governor Abbott's eyes, yes.
Yes.
And I think the pressures that are happening to teachers and even some parents, because there's some parental work. And so where I'm inspired about this movement is, one, you got Indivisible and the tactile community organizers organizing, plus they're organizing with the students. So you're seeing a lot of new young activists showing up, standing in there. I mean, the amount of talented young kids I walk by and say, can I come on the pod? I'm like, they're DMing me. I'm like, our school's doing a thing. I'm like, I don't got that time right now, but I'm loving this energy. Plus you got parents contacting us. Like, this is a potential to me for us to be our next DEI, in the sense of, this is something we can all agree about: safe schools. And what you saw in SD9 race in Taylor Remmett is, I think a lot of what you saw in that activism is, and if any Republicans did shift, or if any, South Lake parents decided to stand up, it's they're tired of extremism in their schools. And you do not mess with Tarrant County and Fort Worth schools and kids. And that's, to me, what's about to happen. And so I think I just wanted to make sure we talked about this because we need to make sure this gets passed to protect kids. But also, I think they're the front line of the resistance right now. And so kids, if you're listening, parents, if you're listening, educators, if you're listening, keep being the resistance. Keep this going. I know Sunrise Tarrant is doing a national school walkout in May. Let's keep the pressure. And so I'm proud of every single young person, family member, and people who are doing this. And that's why I think it's an important asset to us to be discussing.
So leading into this, speaking of resisting things, the state takeover was challenged by the current school board. And just this week, we learned that they lost that and it has been dismissed. And that also led to one of the trustees resigning immediately. So Wallace Bridges has resigned. And I've just been seeing a lot of folks on their social media talking about how, this takeover is unfortunate, but it's going to lead to something better. And I just really don't believe that is the case.
Just look at Houston.
I was talking to someone who went to that campaign managers training for the new, what is it? The board of managers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about how unorganized and how like in a sense of like, what are you going to do? They came to the at the table and they're just talking about how, and it was someone who had like educational experience, a lot of it. And they're like role play. And now they're role playing and like the staff members like acting like an angry parent, like, yelling at them. And it's like, what do you do in this situation? What do you do when someone's yelling at you about, these things?
I had heard from some people that it was really great governance training and that even if you didn't get appointed to it, it would be something that would be beneficial to you. But I heard the same thing from some folks that had participated in it. So it would be interesting to get some kind of report or information from people who are participating in that to see where it stands. And we're still going to also land on who gets appointed to that. Are they local people?
You know what that sounds like? Something a proactive mayor who says she cares about education should ask for. Just saying, rather than dressing up like Woody at the Toy Story in the middle of an ice storm. Just saying. We got to get it together, people. The bar is so low right now. We got to notch this bad boy up. It's time to notch it up. But anyways, let's go to wins and losses.
And actions.
Moving on to wins is something that many of you might already be aware of, and that is that monks from Fort Worth, Texas, have been on a walk from Fort Worth to Washington, D.C., where they will arrive on the 12th, wrapping up this walk across the country for peace. And they left Fort Worth without much fanfare, and I don't know that many people around here were aware that this was happening when they departed, but over their journey, they have acquired quite the following, and they have had incredible positive impact in all of the states that they have visited as they have just walked through silently, marching and walking for peace. And they are returning to Fort Worth on Valentine's Day, and they are going to be gathering in downtown. The location specifically hasn't been announced yet, but they'll be gathering downtown and then doing a final walk back to their temple on the east side. It will be a 6-mile walk, and they're encouraging people to join them in that endeavor. So I think all of us are going to be joining them for that.
And what's so awesome, well, first, they kind of sold Opolis clout, but at the end of the day, but what's awesome about it too, it's like, this is like Fort Worth culture. When I think of what should be in the paper, Like we shouldn't be talking about how like why this Colonial and the Stockyards never have anyone in attendance. Like it's or like in the seats, but they attend. Like the culture of Fort Worth misses the opportunity. There should have been having a funded Fort Worth journalist that was writing a story about their walk through the entire journey. Like we should be advocating and talking about. We should be seeing these monks actually doing the prayer or the blessing of city council. Like there is so much showing you how much like silence if it's not white Christian cowboy culture in Fort Worth. And yeah, I'm showing up. I don't know if I'm walking, but I'm showing up. No, I'll show up. I'll walk. I need
for me, this just takes me back to the roots of my upbringing with Quaker silent protest. And they say it's not a protest or a march. It is simply a walk for peace. So I
might throw on a little thing and blend in. Y'all better watch out. You know,
you can kind of easily do that.
But we're going to move into losses because one win I got for you too is the table. Gather at the table. We did another one of those. We had 35 people come through and hang out and eat, break bread together.
Had other people wish they had their notifications on because they missed it. So we do it at the same time every month. So it's the first Wednesday of the month. So keep that in mind. And if you don't see it, go look for it.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you're and join the Discord too, like we'll be giving updates in there.
Yep.
All right, so we're moving into losses. So a lot of our losses were just in our stories. So there's really not like a thing we want to hit you guys with this time because so much of the losses were just the stories. But I think we're just going to go ahead and move into actions too because there's some actions that have to be taken.
There's a lot of actions.
Yeah. I guess main action number one is Tuesday, just out of office. Just tell whoever cares about you, you got activism to do in Tarrant County and Fort Worth. We got 10 a.m. County Commissioners Court. Advice to county commissioners, if you're going to county commissioners for the first time, you're going to park at the county commissioners parking garage, which is at Calhoun. What's that street? Addresses, go follow the Instagram. But you get a ticket. You go to the county commissioners court. You get up to the elevator. You go to the 5th floor. You find someone on Commissioner Elisa Simmons' team. They will validate the parking for you. After I did the video on Instagram, I said they validated. She says, no, that's me and our team that does that. So think about that. Commissioner Elisa Simmons is the people who actually validates the parking for you can come to give a public comments. I thought I could love that lady more. Now I know that. So anyways, come to county commissioners. But the other big thing is watch it on YouTube because it's going to be 8 hours long. So if you're coming to speak on IC, you may not need to be there at 10 a.m. You could probably honestly show up at 12:31. Depending on how slow everything is.
And if you can do it in person, please do that. But there is the option of signing up to give comment in writing as well.
Yes.
So if you cannot take away from your job and be uncertain as to how long it's going to be and all of that, please chime in writing.
Yeah. So then but then also remember, this is like your last hurrah to get 3 minutes in front of Tim O'Hare.
Yeah.
So like, cause it's going to pass and then we will have to wait pretty much probably to this time next year until it's back, when you got a whole new court. So make the dance. Now, the part is now it's 6 p.m. So once you do your first day of activism, you then get to 6 p.m. Yep. City council, you advocate for salaries. You advocate against power to the city manager.
And they're also voting on the bond propositions.
The final language
advocate
of it.
For affordable housing in the bond.
And public art. Yep.
Then you take a break and we move on to what are our other actions for the rest of the week. We got the Gather on February 15th. The Gather is on February 15th. So come to the Gather. The RSVPs to the Gather already is the highest they've ever been. So I'm like, oh, smokes. We got to figure this out, guys.
I know. We had a large crowd at the last one and started already thinking about we might be outgrowing our space if we continue to have people show up this way.
And then it is Black History Month, 100 years of Black history.
And somebody shared an article on the Discord.
Yeah.
In that vein, that we are encouraged. We didn't do it as a story and we didn't talk about it here, but we're encouraging folks to read it. It's called "I'm Done Humming and Swaying" from Power by Design. So we encourage folks to read that article.
And I encourage you to eat at Black businesses, buy at Black stores, vote for Black politicians. There's a lot of people who are upset. We couldn't talk about Taylor Remick because we had a big day today and all the stuff that happened. If you had a Taylor Remick sign and you have given money to Taylor Remick and you are listening to this podcast and you have not put a Black person sign in front of your house yet and have not donated to a black person yet, that's the next step I need you to do. All right. You cannot be, if that's the next step. All right. We need to show up for Taylor Remmett. We need to do that for every single other candidate. And so that's the call to making sure we're doing that. And so when we press on this conversation, it's about the subconscious of how we show up. And then all these cranky moderate Democrats who are worried about me, I'm going to audit all your giving in the last 20 to 30 years and see how white that giving was. So let's be clear. EJ is saying something. All right. The right people are smacking, but the real people are humming.
Also, we're saying that from now until March 2nd, filing is still open for Fort Worth City Council District 10. We still need a good candidate.
We are for sure. The Elisa lady is a Republican hanging out with Keller ISD, like the wrong side, Keller ISD homies on the Republican side of the education movement of Keller. So, and the other one is Charles Lauersdorf Jr. So we are in some desperate need, you know.
Well, and also North Richland Hills has 4 council seats and a mayor seat open, and I don't think that they have anybody progressive having filed there either.
Where is that?
North Richland Hills.
My God. If you live north of 820, we need you.
We could make it happen. It takes, when you feel like there's no one else, it's because it's supposed to be you.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And well, and speaking of, February 17th is when early voting begins for the primary. So get ready to vote for lots of good progressives that we have so far.
And then on February 20th, the 817 live recording at the Tarrant County Democratic Party fundraiser. So hopefully we'll see you all there in the VIP section, which you have to donate more to get into.
And I called Allison I was like, hey, what can I say? She's like, can you make sure the speech is about a speech of unity? I was like, I could do that for you. You know, so she's, you know, speech of unity will be coming, you know, but
from
the podcast can be, you know, we could. Who knows who we'll talk to? I would like to talk to a lot of array of people. I don't think it's much as about like having Gina on or maybe a Talarico. Like, I think if we just, you know, re-caught up with Katie Sherrod, like, yo, you know, like re-caught up with people, just people like walking by, just sit down and say stuff.
So come and enjoy that live and in person.
Yes,
it's a pivotal time for Tarrant Democratic Party. Like this is the event where we realize our collective power and we realize the collective muscle that it's time to take the whole table.
We had an unusual episode today because we had 3 candidates for an incredibly important race in Precinct 2. And then we went into all of our short stories and that we needed to share with you as well. And in a wrap up, we're kind of thinking it would have been nice to get the input from those 3 candidates about many of the things that we're talking about in these short stories, in our wins and our losses. But you all have the opportunity to do that because these candidates are in the community participating in forums and going to different organizations and events, and they want to hear from you. So now we've given you some information to bring to them to find out where they stand on many of these things to help you make a better decision about who to vote for in Precinct 2.
February 12th, Fort Worth Report panel. Actually, that's an action to take with what you just said.
Yep, there you go.